Good afternoon. You're in New York. I am excited for our conversation. Should we dig in?
Oh, I am too. Absolutely. Let's do
Okay,
this.
so let's start with what is it that you do? A little bit about yourself, your background. How did you find yourself in that amazing, swanky, beautiful office of yours?
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me, Sarita. I love talking to you. I love your magazine. My kids read your magazine. So thank you again for having me and always supporting me throughout my journey. And of course, always asking me great questions. So I'm Laura Diener. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at Northwestern Mutual. We're a 167-year-old company of financial services that is purpose driven. So we exist to help Americans achieve financial security, which is super important to my own core values. Within Northwestern Mutual, cybersecurity is like a central part of our delivering on our mission. And it is a priority for our technology organization as we work to protect our clients and maintain their trust. And so I had the pleasure of joining the company about 3 years ago, almost 3.5 years ago now. And I started my journey as a computer scientist. I actually went to college at Old Dominion University down in Virginia. And, I really credit my father for inspiring me. He worked on encryption systems in the U.S. Navy. And of course, I credit my mother. I was born in Morocco, and I credit my mother for my hardworking skills that I think me and my siblings have acquired. So my journey has been, I feel, if I could say the word blessed, right? I feel very blessed that I've had so many different opportunities. But to start off with, I always wanted to see how things worked. And I think that's mostly because my father, again, had things kind of laying out, encouraged tinkering. I'm the youngest of three boys, right? So it wasn't a cool environment for me to feel like I had the encouragement. Honestly, like I feel like it just runs in my blood, I guess, if I could say that. I've always wanted to do technology. I got into cybersecurity because I feel like I probably had an affinity with my father working on encryption systems. By the way, that system is in the Cryptological Museum in Maryland, if you're interested. And
That is so cool.
yeah, so I feel like, it's opportunities that have come up, and I've had just a wonderful period of encouragement to do what I think is my passion.
Wow, that is quite the story. So you grew up in Morocco, and then
I grew up in the U.S.
you grew up in the US, but you're
Yes.
originally from Morocco. Okay,
Yeah, I
so your
was
parents
born
are
there, emigrated when I was about 2.
okay.
My brothers, Musin, Hisham, and Farouk, are a little older than me, so we came over, and since my dad was in the Navy, we bounced around a bit.
So Laura, you have really worked your way up. You got a bachelor's in computer science, and then you kind of worked your way up through the ranks and reached the Chief Information Security Officer. That's a mouthful, but an important role in an organization. What do you think is the most difficult part about your role? I know there are many, but which
Yeah.
is the most difficult for you?
Yeah, great question. Great question. I try so hard to be positive all the time because we have to fight hackers, right? Me and my team, and it can be stressful. And so there's lots of difficult moments, right? And to me, I think it's the attitude. Like you really just want to ensure that you're calm, that you're working through things, and that you have the common goal of making sure that we're protecting, the company, the clients, the people, everything that's happening. I think probably the most difficult is just making sure we're sticking to what we know we have to accomplish, what's ahead of us. And yeah, I'm going to go with that one, Sarita.
Such a demanding role, and you have a family that you're
Yeah.
raising right now.
Yeah.
How do you balance it all?
But you know the phrase "it takes a village"? Well, it's really true. It does take a village, and Moroccan culture is pretty cool because that's just normal. Everybody helps. Everybody helps with family, and again, I feel very lucky that I live in New York City. People listening to this are probably like, "Man, nobody can raise a family in New York City." I can, and I have an amazing partner. My husband Murray is a partner. He's not just somebody who is like, okay, Laura's got it. He is like, we're in this together. And my kids are getting older. My oldest Zane is 15 now. He helps with things. I know, Sarita, last time I talked to you, he was like, what, 10?
15. Wow. He'll be out of the house soon.
I know. Don't say that. But what's wonderful is the community that I live in Brooklyn. I do feel like I can depend on other people if something comes up. With parenting, obviously something always comes up, but I can call my neighbor. I can call any of the friends that I have in the neighborhood and just say, could you just go pick, so and so up? And it's nice because it does feel like a village, right? I think the second thing is, I have an amazing team, right? And I don't have to do it all. I can delegate, and I do. And if my team's watching, they will be nodding right now. They are so capable. I have a lot of trust in them, and I don't have to be everywhere all the time, right? And then lastly, the third thing is the boundaries, right? So when you have a family, it's really important for you to set some boundaries with everyone, not just the people that you work with, but also you want to find a company that supports those boundaries and values that you have, and the work life. I don't like to say balance, work life harmony. You want work life harmony, so it's really important to pick the right company for what you feel is important to you and those boundaries.
And I think that's very valuable advice. Even if you have career aspirations and you are offered a job, you have to look beyond the pay package and look at the culture of the company.
Sure.
What do they encourage, especially as women? Because it's always a challenge to find a company and a culture that we are proud of to be called a part of that company.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's go back to your childhood. What is your most favorite memory of your childhood?
What a nice question, Sarita. See, when we opened up, I said you always ask good questions, and you're just like you're hitting it. One of my favorite memories I have is my mother she's passed since about 10 years ago, but she loved the beach. Where we're from in Morocco's Kenitra is the name of the town. It's a beach town. Actually, the beach is Medea Beach, but Kenitra is close enough. And I have this memory of us going to the beach. Now, I was super young in Morocco, so I'm guessing it's probably Virginia Beach that this memory is.
Our brain works in mysterious ways.
I know, but she loved going to the beach. She's so happy, and it was like me and my siblings, and we were just running back and forth, with the waves, and she had packed us a lunch, and it's just a wonderful memory because she was so free, and happy. And we were happy. I think we spent the whole day at the beach, and so this is one of my favorite memories. Is whenever I'm really missing her, I think about this quite often.
So sweet.
Thank you.
So you said that your father was very instrumental in inspiring you, and your mom has been a very strong influence and making you feel the ambition and the drive and the motivation. How else did you think that their parenting? What was it about the way they parented and raised their 4 kids? So that you are you have 3 brothers, and you were the youngest. So how was the dynamic in the household like that you never
Chaos.
felt
Like my house is now.
just the way you like it?
Chaos and really good Moroccan food.
Oh, yeah.
So in all seriousness, I already mentioned to you I went to Old Dominion University, and instead of talking about my parents, I'm going to talk about my support group around me. So going to Old Dominion University, I was about 1 in 5 women in the class of 300 my freshman year. And of course, I knew every woman in that class because there's only 5 of us.
It's only 5, yeah.
But like, I couldn't shake this feeling that I didn't belong there, you know? even if I had these other women friends, I still like it was overwhelming for me. Like when I first walked into that freshman class, and
Why
so
do you think that is?
I I don't know, like I think that you were asking about the family dynamic. Like it was probably
Mhm.
because I always felt like I belong. And of course, I've been around 3 boys older than me, right? But walking in there, it was just so different, right? Maybe it was because I'm Moroccan, and I was, there were no Moroccans in that class. Maybe it was because I was just out of my comfort zone. I don't know. I didn't feel like I belonged, and I would definitely get discouraged. But I remember lots of phone calls to my brother Hisham, and he would try to get that out of my head. Stop being discouraged. You got to go back in there. You're going to college. Like, you're making us proud, right? And that was so important. And I think it's important as a woman in technology because you're gonna encounter the same thing. You're gonna walk into a meeting and you're gonna be the only one. If you're a person of color, same thing. You're gonna be the only one. But you got to remember that you are paving the way. You're setting a good example, and you got to persevere. I think that's so perseverance. I think to answer your question, Sarita, is like my family has persevered through so many things. And I think that encouragement that I got, and it stuck with me my whole career, because you're going to encounter challenging times, and that perseverance is really important. That, and no one should define you. You are yourself, and always be true to that, and don't let a moment such as like what I felt that first day I walked in freshman class, don't let that be a defining moment where you just walk out, right? Be yourself.
So your brother was very instrumental in
Yes.
snapping you out of that mindset.
Yes.
Were there any other people or any other steps, if that's the word, you took, or mindset shifts that you made over the years to
Yeah.
sort of settle in and come to this realization that I am working so hard, I deserve to be here, and I'm going to make the best of what I've been given.
Well, I had mentioned like be yourself. I think that kept coming back to me, because I've worked at a lot of different companies, and you can get sucked into that culture and maybe lose a piece of yourself. But that be yourself is really important. If you do want, like a career in cybersecurity, and these kinds of, like, your skills that you want to hone in on are be a generalist, right? So you want to know, it's not that you don't want to be an expert in something, you just want to know a lot about a lot of things. And you need to wear all these different hats, and be a strategic thinker, and be a collaborator across all the businesses, and be an educator and be a communicator, right? So it's not just one thing. You're not just like, I got a computer science degree, I'm going to computer science. You got to think about all the other hats that you have to wear, in order to excel, and make sure that you're working with all the people that you're going to encounter on a given day. And so I think that those characteristics are really, really important. Because being a chief information security officer is about leadership and building the amazing team I keep talking about. And I already mentioned the culture of the company. If you're in that culture, the technology might be one way, but the security goals have to be really embedded into that, right? The security is not like an afterthought. It's part and parcel of doing the business. And so security has to be a big part of that. So the characteristics and those kinds of things that I've encountered over the years are really important, for success, in my opinion. And probably not just with security people. As you grow, and if you decide to be a leader, I think you have to be strategic thinker, collaborator, and a good communicator, and eventually an educator.
I like your term of generalist. It's almost looked down upon because nowadays everything is about specialization. But
Yeah.
as you said, as you rise through the ranks, you are doing a lot more than, as you
Yes.
say, cybersecurity. You are
Yeah.
managing. You have an important leadership role. People are counting on you. So there are
Absolutely.
those skills you have to pick up and excel at over the years. So with a bachelor's in computer science,
Hmm.
when did you know that you wanted to go into cybersecurity? Was there a specific point in time? Because I imagine when you were in college, was the field where it is today?
Oh, absolutely not. No, the field was very different. When did I decide? I don't, it's a good question, Sarita. I think my first role was in a security operations center at a big financial services company on the night shift too. Talk about perseverance. um, and I think I was hooked then, right? Because it was my first job out of college and it was on the night shift, which was very boring. But I occupied myself with like rebuilding a firewall. I occupied myself with learning what that beepy thing was over in the corner. And I realized that, wow, this is a vast field. It's not just about like hacking into things. It's about application security and penetration testing and identity and authentication control and all these things that I can, and database security, right? I can get into. And I really enjoyed it. And that was probably when I realized that like I'm probably never turning back from here. And I was in that security operations center for about 18 months. I think most people burn out of that center in 18 months. And I started doing application security and I really loved it. I loved just looking at code, helping developers understand that this is a SQL injection or something that they're putting in their code that could be utilized for its not intended purpose. And I just kept going from there. I tried different things. I went to security architecture. I did penetration. Like I tried all these different things and I was never bored. I learned a lot. And I think that's my biggest advice is just you got to constantly learn. And it's exciting, if that's what brings you joy is to learn new things. And I think the field of cybersecurity and risk management is really cool like that. You really get to learn different ways of thinking of things.
I think it's inherently a field where you have to constantly keep learning because things are always changing and advancing.
Always changing.
Did you take any specific certifications or was it just learn on the job and as you go?
Yeah, I did take some certifications, and I appreciate certifications because they are very helpful, especially some of the earlier certifications when you're trying to get into a field. But I really like just hands-on learning and tinkering, and like you said, learn on the job because for my brain anyway, it just sticks. I will remember that time I broke a whole computer because I just did the wrong command, and then
Tell me
I
more.
had to rebuild the whole thing, and then start over. And it's a learning process, right? Like you don't have to do things right the first time. You just have to learn continuously from something that you did before, and I enjoy that. I prefer like just the hands-on learning. I'm not saying certificates are bad. I think those are also really good. The academic part of it is really important, but I enjoy the hands-on.
So during the early years, were there any failures that kind of discouraged you so much, and how did you overcome it?
I mean, gosh, I think I fail all the time. What's important is that you learn from it and then you hopefully don't make the same mistake again. And even if you do, don't get discouraged. Just keep continuously learn from it. I mean, if there's one that stands out to me, I had a big lesson learned. It was my first ever chief information security role. The company had suffered a huge breach, a huge security breach before I joined the company. And, I joined as the chief information security officer. They had no real security program. And so, my mind was like, okay, I'm here to build this and that's it. But that is not it, right? Because when you're a leader and you're building strategy in a program, you have to be a part of that bigger thing, that bigger team. And if there's a lesson I learned there is like I came in and I was like, okay, I fixed the technology. Here you go. And other members of the executive team are like, no. Right? We're in this together. Like eventually this is going to be a public thing, right? And so we need to talk to the chief marketing officer. The general counsel is involved, and we have to all be in this, and you have to convince us first that this is the thing to do. And it's not just your problem, Laura, it's our problem. And for me, I think I was probably trying to be a hero, and that lesson was so real to me that like, okay, I don't have to do all this myself. I have this whole group of people, and it's not just about like technology. It's not like, here, I slap some technology in place and let's just go. It's not that. It's the people, it's the process of it, and of course it's bringing everybody together. So that was probably the biggest lesson I learned. And it obviously was very stressful because, the company wanted to come out on top after any company that suffers a breach. It's very stressful, and it was a lesson for me. It was a big, I wouldn't say failure necessarily. I think I probably rubbed a couple people the wrong way at first just because of that approach, but they were good enough to tell me, "No, this is us, not you." And so that was a good lesson for me. Since then, I've just carried that with me.
I love that story so much because it is not it's a very common mindset to say you are hired for a role and
Yeah.
you have to own it and you have to defend it, and
Yeah.
it's just you have to excel at it each and every day.
Yeah.
And very often we fail to see that whole picture on
Mhm.
how you as a piece of the puzzle fit into the whole thing. So
Very well
love
said.
that story, love that
Yeah.
perspective. So, as somebody who has been in cybersecurity for the last 20 years, so how long has it
24.
been? 24 years. You have been in cybersecurity for 24 years. That is amazing. So, just generally over the years, the entire IT and cybersecurity field is just highlighted as one of the fastest growing and in demand, right? So, while we know technology is requiring these, are there any other factors that is driving this high demand?
Well, I mean, the world has changed and it's going really fast. So, I think the cybersecurity experts are in high demand because everyone needs them for these reasons. Everything's online. It like gone are the days that the internet was just starting. I'm old. Um,
Me too.
Um, and then secondly, everything happens really fast, very, very quickly, right? I mean, just look at ChatGPT. I said it. See,
Oh, I stuck to AI. I didn't go personal.
yeah. So everything's changing really fast, and the world has a deficit of people who are skilled in protecting all of the new things that are happening, protecting the data, and so these are in high demand for these reasons. And then of course, just look at some of the headlines of the breaches. Like, these cost a lot of money, and when companies suffer these breaches, they absolutely have to get the right skills on their teams to ensure that this doesn't happen again, or the next novel way of getting into a system is protected, right? So these are in high demand because of the world we live in today. It's everything's online, everything's fast, and everybody wants the same people, basically. So if you want a sure job, you should get into cybersecurity. I think that's really important.
So, how important is knowledge or upskilling yourself in AI or machine learning going to be for securing a job in cybersecurity?
Well, I actually think everyone should upskill on AI and large language models and machine learning. I think super important. We're at an amazing time right now in the world. Lots of people are using AI. They were already using it. This is not new, so you should definitely upskill on. Even if you just want to do some basics, right? And I think this is the case with security. Is that I had mentioned, like, I like learning. It is a continuous learning kind of field. You want to continuously learn, how is AI being used from the threat actor's perspective? What is polymorphism? Like, you have to understand all these things and why that kind of code in your environment would be scary, right? Because you want to understand how to thwart those types of attacks. So the continuous learning is super, super important, especially if you want to be in cybersecurity on like the defensive side or the detection side or the incident response side. So very, very important. I do think anybody in technology should upskill just generally, whether it's the cloud stuff or now it's some of the large language models that everybody's been so excited about. But I think that's just an important part of what you should incorporate into your own development just going forward.
So, what sort of a personality trait or a crucial trait that somebody needs to do really well in this field?
Yeah, great question. I'd mentioned continuous learning. I think that's really important, but I like looking for the ability to just want to understand how things work. Like just have that capacity. Just not something that is like you have a checkbox. Like I want to I like thinking outside the box, right? And looking for the opportunity to learn here, try this, try that, right? Because I think you can get trained on anything, right? If you have that passion and you want to learn, you will learn it, but it's more of a thinking outside the box and being part of that team and helping each other. That's really, I think, an important skill in cybersecurity, because if you're up against the threat actors who are well funded and also have a team who are working together, you should probably have that too. And that's those are the things I look for is team player, capacity to learn, and ability to think outside the box. Those are
So you have seen the influence of technology coming in. Does that scare you, worry you?
I mean, I'm pretty paranoid by nature, you know. If you're alluding to the thing that we have not named yet, which I'm surprised, it's like Voldemort.
We'll get to it.
You know, I like I'm a computer scientist, so I'm really excited about new technologies. I think that it comes down to education, comes down to making sure that we're using those products or those new technologies appropriately. I read a book when I was getting my computer science degree. It's called The Gift of Fire, and it was talking about technology. And I think that that's really important, because you have to make sure that you understand both sides of whatever the new technology is. Is it going to be helpful? Yes, of course. But also, can it be used for harm? And I think that having both sides of those equations are really, really important. I'm paranoid because of the threat actors, right? There's lots of threat actors are always after either, the e-criminals are after breaking in and getting some ransomware so that they can make some money. The nation state actors are after persistency in your environment so that they can have an edge over maybe your IP, for example. And so yeah, there's lots of threat actors, and we have to stay, diligent about what their tactics and their techniques and protocols are. But there's also this side where you shouldn't shy away from a technology that might help you, combat those bad threat actors, right? And so that's my philosophy on new trends, new things, new novel things that are coming out that we haven't named yet. Voldemort.
let's let's discuss Voldemort. We have to go there. So for me, what I'm seeing that concerns me, because I honestly do not understand as much as an IT or a tech professional does, is this whole concept of deep fakes and how AI voice cloning happens. As a CISO, how do you keep yourself and your family safe, knowing what you know?
It's scary, So threat actors, actually, like the e-criminals I was talking about. I did say ransomware, but I didn't say this part of it, which is like social engineering. At the end of the day, they're trying to gain an edge, and honestly, they really know how to prey on your human emotion. They really know how to prey on something that you are going to react to. And that's why they're called e-criminals, because they really do try to capitalize on these things that are immoral, right? My biggest advice is first and foremost, you have to stay informed, right? And so if there is a scam, there's plenty of things that you can sign up for, where you can get an alert. I know your bank probably tells you, like, here's some of the ways that you can look for scams. Pay attention to those. That's the biggest thing. So pay attention to the latest alerts, the latest, advice on a new scam, perhaps, right? In this case, you talked about deepfakes. This is the second point, really important. You should always be a little skeptical. Like, even if that voice sounds like your child, you can still ask a couple questions that only you and that child know, right? And not questions that somebody else could figure out, but like, oh, what did I pack you for lunch today, right? So you can be a little skeptical, ask one little question that you and your child know, and if they can't answer it, honestly, they'll probably just drop the call and you'll know it was a scam. When it comes to voice, here at Northwestern Mutual, we actually care a lot about training. I had mentioned education and communication as some key attributes and characteristics. at Northwestern Mutual, we train a lot. And one of the big trainings we did was on deep fake. And so if you're on a video, right now, because this will change, because as the technology gets better, you can ask the person to just touch their ear. Because when they turn to the side, right now, the technology is not advanced enough, and you will notice that there's something different. And so if you ask them to touch their ear, or if you just say, hey, can I disconnect and just call you, right? You can be a little skeptical. Now, I know there's in the news, you've seen it's like some high priority thing and a top executive, and there's, again, preying on your emotion, but just take a breath. Just ask yourself a couple of questions. Does this seem real? And are there something I can ask? And you can still be respectful, right? Just say, I just need to verify a couple of things. And most of the time that's going to be helpful for you. Now, as things change, there'll be some new, advice. Maybe doing this is not going to work anymore. But there will be new advice. And so that's why it goes back to my first one, which is sign up for the different alerts and read where you can and think about the different tactics that people are giving from an advice perspective on how to not fall prey to the types of tactics of the criminals.
It's very hard to convince kids to stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay skeptical online. So what is your advice to parents on how they should have that conversation with their kids?
Yeah, great question. I think first and foremost, education. Most education platforms or curriculums will have something about cyberbullying. And so I think that's really important, because a lot of kids get on, some of the Discord servers and some of these other Minecraft servers, and they'll experience some cyberbullying. So I think that aspect is really important, just how to have conversations with your kids about cyberbullying. But also, one thing that I do with my own kids is that anything you post online lives forever, in perpetuity. There is no taking it down. And so anything you do, someone can find. And really think about that before you post that picture or before you take that video, or someone's taking a video of you, right? And that's the second thing, is be aware of your surroundings, because everyone's taking videos nowadays. And you certainly don't want to be caught up in something that, is going to look negatively on you, or not even portray your true self, right? If you happen to be in the background, right? And so just be aware of those kinds of surroundings. Just be aware of what's happening. We call it OPSEC in security, so just operational security, so OPSEC, knowing what's happening around you. Because if you're having conversations out loud and someone's listening, then you want to be aware of that. And so you don't want to have confidential conversations around people, especially like airports or Starbucks, right? And so I say the same thing to my kids, is just that you have to, your persona online is a reflection of you, and you can't ever delete it. And so be aware of what's happening around you. And I think that's really important. I also always say, your password is like your toothbrush. You shouldn't share it. It's really important that you keep that password to yourself. My kids sometimes will share the password with other people, and I'm like, come on, your parents are all in cybersecurity and you're over here sharing your password. But, they're
It's
like,
not a good look for you.
I know. They're like, oh, what's the big deal? Of course, I had to, well, let me explain. Nowadays, we're turning on multi-factor authentication. That's super important. So I would say any social media that you have, you should be turning on multi-factor authentication. And then, of course, if your kids have their own email addresses, same thing. You should turn on the multi-factor authentication. It's really important.
I think those are excellent. So you mentioned ChatGPT. Is that it? Is that something that you use in your daily job? Have you used it?
Yeah, I love chatbots. I think the chatbot's really cool. I mean, what a cool, if I have to explain a complex security topic that's technical to a business person, it is so cool to just plop that into a ChatGPT chatbot, and I always say, tell me I'm a layman, or tell me I'm in high school, or tell me I'm a freshman in college. And it does a really good job of explaining complex topics. Try zero trust. Go ahead and put that in chat GPT. But what I don't do is I never put sensitive data into a an open source chat GPT or anything like that, because because garbage in, garbage out, and you certainly don't own that data anymore. So you want to make sure that when you're using these kinds of things, you're just, again, same thing with the advice before. You want to think about what you're putting into them, especially if it's open source, because they will just utilize the data to train the model. So really important, at Northwestern Mutual, of course, we're thinking a lot about AI. We're thinking about how we can utilize it. There's some exciting ideas. We've put in some guardrails, so we're not being irresponsible. And I'm pretty excited, honestly. I'm excited about, and I had mentioned Gift of Fire before, right? I'm excited about where we are, that we've finally come to a place that we're utilizing these tools. But what I am looking for when I said Gift of Fire is just, how are we going to ensure that those guardrails are strengthened? And how are we going to incorporate the defensive measures for it being used on the other side of the equation? So, big.
So when you were a young professional just starting out in this field,
Mm-hmm.
was there somebody of influence who, or a mentor who advised you in a way that it still find yourself still thinking about it, and that you would like to share with the young professionals who are coming after you?
Yeah. I've been so fortunate to come across so many advisors, mentors, advocates, that this is going to be a tough one for me. But I think that I came across someone in one of my my Wall Street based companies who, he just gave me an opportunity, and I was just kind of like, me, like, are you sure I can do this? And it was just, he was just so encouraging. He's like, well, why not you? And it was like I was my own worst enemy at the time, because I just didn't have the confidence. I didn't believe in myself. Dare I say imposter syndrome? But, he gave me this great opportunity to lead a team, a global team. And I was always an individual contributor. And he's just like, well, we know you could do this. Why don't you know you could do this? and, and it still sticks with me, because I still encounter situations where I get new opportunities, and I still have this voice that's just like, me? And so and I'm still friends with him. Hi, JJ. He still is, I still look to him as an advisor. Every now and then I'll just be like, what would JJ do? Or, why am I second guessing myself here? So I think that still sticks with me.
Wow, that is super impactful, because as you said, if people believe in you, why are you not believing in yourself? Should be a question you have to ask yourself. So looking ahead for the next 5 to 10 years, the pace at which technology is going, I think 5 to 10 years is also a long time. Where do you see the highest demand?
We had already talked about AI, machine learning, and large language models. So I think that that's going to be the place where everyone needs to upskill. Like that's the biggest one. I do think also, in my field, identity and access management has been a part of the field for a long time. But I think with the advent of machine learning, LLMs, AI, we're going to see some changes in identity and access management for the good, to help with a lot of the things that, the field has been grappling with. And so if I had to pick, those would be the two. So AI and identity and access management.
Wonderful. Right. Any helpful resources that could be useful for professionals who are interested in this field? They've listened to you and they're fired up. I'm like, cybersecurity, here I come.
Sign me up. Yeah. So, look for opportunities to gain some practical experience. I think that's really important. Look for internships, entry level positions. Look for some volunteer opportunities. So many communities. There's the Open Web Application Security Project. It's called OWASP. There are women in cybersecurity WCs. There's lots of different communities. Just do some searches and go to a chapter meeting. There's ISACA, right? So there's the community they have so many security, tight-knit security communities, depending on your affinity, what you want to do. I would encourage you, just join those, have conversations with like-minded folks, do some projects, get some hand-on experience, and seek the internships or entry-level positions. That's my advice.
You are one of the busiest people I know. So I am eternally thankful for taking the time and showing us this beautiful view and having.
I just want to thank you for, I mean, it's so important for us women to inspire the next generation of women. And so I want to thank you, really, like